Hey guys, tonight we're going to delve into the world of pirate tattoos. Yes, those very same symbols of rebellion, survival, and seafaring legends. Imagine being out on a swaying ship, surrounded by nothing but the vast expanse of the ocean, the wind howling and the constant buzz of adventure in the air. But there's something even more fascinating about these seafarers, beyond their plundered treasures and rowdy escapades, their tattoos. Pirate tattoos weren't just for looks. Now, these inked marks were often steeped in superstition and served as badges of honor, or at times even talismans for good fortune. And let's face it, if you were facing life on the high seas, you'd want a little bit of protection, wouldn't you? But here's a little reality check for you. If you ever found yourself on a pirate ship, you probably wouldn't survive long without some serious grit. From the harsh environment to the cutthroat competition among pirates, life on board wasn't for the faint-hearted. And guess what? Those tattoos, they often meant more than you might think. They signified your place in the crew, your luck, and your fate. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I always appreciate the support. And while you're at it, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your corner of the world. I'm always curious about how far these pirate stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Pirate tattoos are far more than just ink on skin. They carry with them a rich, complex history that goes back centuries. But where did it all begin? How did tattooing become a ritual among these notorious figures of the sea? The origins of pirate tattoos might surprise you, especially when you consider how early tattooing in Western cultures was a practice mostly associated with sailors and Marines, not necessarily pirates. It's a fascinating journey from traditional maritime tattoos to the unique and sometimes mystifying symbols inked onto the flesh of some of history's most infamous rogues. Pirate tattoos were a way to mark a man, make a statement, and, most intriguingly, perhaps even keep death at bay. You see, back in the day, sailors would often get tattoos for a very practical reason: survival. Tattoos could represent a crew member's previous voyages, where they had sailed, and even how far they'd come on the journey of life. A sailor, or in this case a pirate, could leave a mark of their identity without saying a word. And that's exactly how tattooing became entwined with the pirate's journey. Historians still argue whether pirate tattoos were initially meant purely for identification, or whether they were always part of a greater ritualistic practice. Either way, it's clear that for pirates, tattoos were far more than just decorative. They were personal, powerful symbols that could mean the difference between life and death on the unforgiving seas.
As we glide deeper into the history of pirate tattoos, let's first take a look at the allure of the sea. Pirates, after all, weren't just marauding criminals. They were men and women who sought freedom from the constraints of society. The open ocean called to them, its vastness symbolizing both adventure and escape. But life on the sea wasn't all thrill and excitement. It was, in many ways, a dangerous and unpredictable existence. The sea, with all its mystery, wasn't just a backdrop for their deeds. It was an essential part of the pirate identity. The ocean was both a resource and a threat, capable of swallowing men whole without warning. So what did pirates do when faced with the unknown? They turned to symbols, tattoos, perhaps as a way to feel connected to something bigger than themselves, something that could offer protection, or at the very least, offer a bit of comfort on those lonely nights in the open water. It was common for sailors of all kinds to tattoo themselves, but pirates took it to another level. They used tattoos to mark their bodies with symbols that would define them for the rest of their lives. Tattoos became a part of their identity, a permanent reminder of the dangers and opportunities the sea presented. But tattoos weren't always just about protection or marking a personal journey. The truth is, they often symbolized something much more profound: superstition. You see, pirates were deeply superstitious people, and for good reason. A life spent constantly facing danger on the high seas could drive anyone to seek out lucky charms, talismans, and anything that might keep death at bay. Historians still debate whether tattoos were actually believed to be magical or simply good luck charms. Some scholars suggest that certain tattoos were thought to offer protection from the sea, while others argued that tattoos were a reflection of the pirates' desire to create their own fate, shaping their identity and destiny. One thing is certain, tattoos became essential to the pirate way of life. And it wasn't just about superstition. Tattoos could also be a mark of solidarity, a way for pirates to show they were part of something bigger than themselves. After all, pirates weren't lone wolves. They were part of a crew, and each member of that crew had to have trust in one another. Tattoos were a way to forge that bond, signifying that you were one with the Brotherhood of Pirates. In fact, some of the most iconic symbols among pirates, like the anchor, the heart, or the skull and crossbones, were not just decorative, but were meaningful. They served as a reminder that you were part of something that transcended the ordinary world. And for those who survived the perilous life at sea, those tattoos were often a source of pride, proof of their journey and the challenges they had faced. These tattoos weren't just pretty pictures. They were shields and talismans in their own right, signifying resilience and defiance against the odds. They were a constant reminder to the pirates of who they were, where they had been, and the dangers that lay ahead. And as each tattoo was etched into their skin, it became more than just ink. It became part of their soul. But what did these tattoos actually look like? What were the symbols and patterns that defined pirates? Well, let's take a closer look at some of the most common pirate tattoos that still capture the imagination of modern culture.
So now that we have a glimpse into the significance of pirate tattoos, let's talk about the first inked pirates. Who were these trailblazers of the tattooed world, and what did their tattoos represent? Well, to understand the earliest adopters of pirate tattoos, we need to step back into the rough and often chaotic world of the 17th and 18th centuries, during what we now call the Golden Age of piracy. Pirates, at this time, weren't the romanticized figures we often see in Hollywood movies. Life for these seafarers was brutal and unforgiving. But in their own way, they found a kind of camaraderie and unity in the act of getting tattoos. The tattooed pirate was both a symbol of rebellion and a symbol of survival. And so, the practice of tattooing became ingrained in pirate culture, with its roots likely tied to sailors' traditions. One of the earliest documented cases of pirates sporting tattoos was in the mid-18th century. Some reports from the time mention pirates like Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, who allegedly had tattoos on his body. While the exact nature of Blackbeard's tattoos remains a mystery, historians still argue over the details of his personal adornment. One thing is certain: the idea of pirates tattooing themselves was already becoming well established. The tattoos of these early pirates weren't always elaborate, but they carried powerful meanings. For example, sailors, many of whom eventually became pirates, would often have simple tattoos like an anchor on their forearm or a small cross on their chest. These were symbols meant to represent their journey, both physically and spiritually. Historians still debate whether tattoos were a widespread practice among pirates or if they were a mark of a select few. Some argue that the tattoos were reserved for more hardened or experienced pirates, while others suggest that they were a rite of passage for all who sailed under the pirate flag. But regardless of how they were distributed, one thing is clear: tattoos were an integral part of pirate culture, and they would remain so for generations to come. But what were the actual meanings behind these tattoos? The anchor, one of the most common pirate symbols, was a symbol of stability, and it was often used to represent the pirate's connection to the sea. It was a mark of a sailor's strength and perseverance, and in the pirate world, it symbolized survival against all odds.
Another common tattoo was the skull and crossbones, which we still associate with pirates to this day. This symbol was a deathly reminder of the perils pirates faced daily, whether from the danger of naval battles, disease, or simply the unforgiving nature of the ocean. For pirates, the skull and crossbones wasn't just a symbol of death, it was a symbol of defiance against it. It served as a challenge to the world around them. No matter what the ocean threw at them, they would not go down without a fight. But as we've seen with so many other aspects of pirate life, there was more to these tattoos than simply their surface meaning. Tattoos were, in many ways, a way for pirates to tell their own personal stories. And like every good pirate, each tattoo had its own tale to tell. Historians still argue over the full meanings behind these tattoos. Were they personal, superstitious, or simply for decoration? Some pirates likely wore tattoos to mark their identity, while others may have seen them as magical symbols to protect them from death. Whatever the case, tattooing had become more than just a trend. It was an essential part of the pirate persona, and it carried with it a rich history that would continue to evolve for centuries to come.
Let's now dive deeper into the rituals and superstitions surrounding pirate tattoos. You might think that tattoos were purely about personal expression, but in the world of pirates, they often took on a more mystical, almost magical significance. Pirates were known for their superstitions, and with the constant dangers of the sea, from storms and shipwrecks to the ever-present threat of hostile naval forces, many pirates believed that tattoos could offer protection, bring good luck, or even ward off death. Tattoos were more than just body art. They were shields and charms, imbuing the pirate with a sense of invincibility. Many pirates believed that the right tattoo could offer a magical safeguard against the dangers of the sea, and even more importantly, against the ultimate danger, death itself. One of the most commonly believed superstitions was that tattoos could protect a pirate from dying in battle. It was thought that if a pirate was tattooed with the right symbols, like an anchor or a heart, they would be spared from the grasp of death. Some believed that tattoos helped the pirate's soul navigate the afterlife, ensuring a safe passage to the next world. There was also the belief that certain symbols, like the infamous skull and crossbones, would frighten death itself, keeping it away. Historians still debate the true nature of these beliefs. Were tattoos really considered magical, or were they simply a psychological comfort in the face of constant danger? Some scholars suggest that pirates used these tattoos as a form of self-assurance, a way to convince themselves that they were protected from harm. Others argue that these symbols were more about reinforcing a pirate's sense of identity, marking them as part of a larger mystical tradition. Either way, it's clear that tattoos had more significance than we often give them credit for. Pirates often chose symbols that had personal meaning to them, but these symbols also held a larger, collective power. For example, a common tattoo among pirates was the image of a cross or a heart. These symbols weren't just romantic notions. They were tied to a belief in the power of protection and love. The cross, for instance, was a symbol of faith, and many pirates believed that by carrying this symbol on their bodies, they could appeal to a higher power for guidance and protection. Similarly, the heart was a symbol of love, but also of courage, representing a pirate's emotional and physical strength. Other tattoos like a swallow or a rose were also popular choices. The swallow, for instance, was often associated with the idea of returning home. For pirates who spent years away from land, a swallow tattoo was a hopeful reminder that they would one day return to familiar shores. The rose, on the other hand, was sometimes seen as a symbol of sacrifice, a reminder that the pirate's life on the sea was filled with both beauty and peril.
It's important to note that not all pirate tattoos were rooted in superstition. While many pirates sought out tattoos for their supposed magical properties, others simply saw them as a rite of passage or a mark of their profession. In a way, the tattoos became a visual language, communicating a pirate's experience and identity to those around them. And even if these tattoos weren't truly magical, they certainly served as a comfort during the long stretches at sea. Knowing that their tattoos might protect them or at least provide some sense of security allowed pirates to face the uncertainties of the ocean with a bit more courage. And let's not forget, pirates were notorious for their rough-and-tumble lifestyle, and a tattoo was often a symbol of resilience in the face of adversity. Historians still argue over whether pirates truly believed in the magical properties of their tattoos, or if the tattoos were more symbolic, an outward expression of an inward desire for safety and strength. But one thing is clear, whether for superstition or solidarity, pirate tattoos were far more than just decorative. They were integral to the pirate identity.
As we continue our journey into the world of pirate tattoos, let's turn our focus to one of the most fascinating aspects of pirate culture, the symbols and their meanings. What did these tattoos really signify? Were they just random designs, or did they hold deeper, more significant messages for those who wore them? To the pirates themselves, tattoos weren't merely decoration. They were deliberate choices that carried weight, stories, and sometimes even secrets. One of the most iconic pirate symbols is the skull and crossbones, often associated with the most feared pirates in history, like Blackbeard. This simple yet striking design was meant to evoke fear and respect. In the pirate world, the skull and crossbones didn't just represent death, it represented defiance against death. Pirates, who faced constant danger on the high seas, often used this symbol as a way to stare death in the face and say, "You won't get me today." It was also a mark of the pirates' ruthless nature, something that warned their enemies they were dealing with no ordinary sailor. But the skull and crossbones wasn't just the symbol of aggression. For pirates, it was a symbol of liberation. Pirates, after all, were outlaws who defied authority and the law. They were in many ways the ultimate rebels, and the skull and crossbones embodied that rebellion. It was a way to mark themselves as free from the rules of society, a symbol of their independence and refusal to conform. Historians still argue whether the skull and crossbones was a universal pirate tattoo or just a symbol used by a select few. While it is undoubtedly the most recognized pirate tattoo, some scholars suggest that not all pirates used it. The design may have been more common among pirate leaders or those known for their fearlessness, while others may have opted for more personal or less ominous symbols. Regardless of its popularity, the skull and crossbones became synonymous with piracy, and its meaning still resonates today. Another important tattoo for pirates was the anchor, which symbolized stability and strength. The anchor tattoo wasn't just about the pirate's relationship with the sea. It was also a symbol of survival. Pirates were always on the move, constantly searching for treasure and fighting off enemies. But the anchor served as a reminder that they were tied to the sea, and in many ways, the sea was their home. It was a symbol of grounding and endurance, something that pirates needed more than ever in their tumultuous lives. Beyond the anchor, other tattoos were more personal, often representing the pirate's journey, faith, or experiences. For example, the image of a swallow was popular with sailors, and it held special significance for pirates. The swallow, which is known for migrating long distances, symbolized hope and the idea of returning home. Pirates who had been away from land for long periods often had a swallow tattoo to remind them that they would one day return to shore. It was a symbol of hope in the midst of uncertainty, a promise that no matter how perilous the journey, they would eventually come back to the land they had left behind. Historians still debate the true meanings behind some of these tattoos.
Was the swallow purely a symbol of hope, or did it also represent freedom? Could the anchor represent a deeper connection to the sea, or was it simply a way for pirates to mark their survival? The answers remain elusive, but the fact that pirates chose these symbols and wore them with pride speaks volumes about their world and their values. Tattoos weren't just about personal expression. They were about survival, hope, rebellion, and strength. They were the stories of the pirates themselves, etched onto their skin as a permanent reminder of their journey, their defiance, and their commitment to the pirate code. And as the centuries have passed, these symbols continue to evoke fascination and intrigue, reminding us of the bold, fearless souls who once sailed the high seas.
Now that we've explored the meanings behind pirate tattoos, let's delve into how these tattoos played a role in the hierarchy and rank aboard pirate ships. You might think of pirate ships as chaotic, lawless places where every man was his own captain. But the truth is, pirates, despite their rebellious nature, had their own code of conduct. This code wasn't just about dividing loot or setting rules for behavior. It also influenced the way pirates marked themselves, through tattoos. Pirate ships weren't just home to a random group of outlaws. They were tightly knit communities, where each member had a role to play, whether as a captain, quartermaster, or deckhand. The pirate code ensured that every pirate had a voice, but it also meant that everyone knew their place. Tattoos, too, helped establish this order, marking a pirate's rank, role, or even accomplishments. For example, a common tattoo for those who had survived the perilous journey around Cape Horn, an area notoriously dangerous for sailors, was a tattoo of a gold earring or a star. These tattoos weren't just decoration. They were a way to signify that a pirate had completed an incredible feat. Surviving such a treacherous route was no small feat, and the tattoo served as proof of that experience. Similarly, pirates who had survived particularly dangerous battles often had tattoos to mark their victories, often using images of swords or pistols. These tattoos were worn like badges of honor, showing off the pirate's courage and battle prowess. Historians still debate whether these tattoos were formally assigned or if pirates simply chose to mark their own achievements in this way. Some scholars believe that pirates would simply tattoo themselves with symbols of survival or victories as a way to show off to their fellow crew members. Others argue that tattoos were assigned based on the pirate's specific role, with higher-ranking pirates sporting more elaborate or meaningful tattoos. Regardless of how they were distributed, one thing is certain: tattoos helped reinforce the pirate hierarchy, serving as both personal and professional markers. It's important to note that the tattooing process itself was an important part of the pirate ritual. Tattoos weren't done in the comfortable environment of a tattoo parlor. Instead, they were often inked under rough conditions in places where hygiene was questionable at best. Pirate tattooing was often a communal activity, with one pirate acting as the artist for the others. This made tattoos a shared experience among the crew, further solidifying the bonds between them. The act of getting a tattoo on a pirate ship wasn't just about the design. It was about the experience of being part of something greater than yourself. Some scholars argue that tattooing served as a way to break down barriers between pirates from different backgrounds. Pirates weren't typically from the same towns or cultures. Many came from various parts of Europe, Africa, and the Caribbean. Tattoos allowed them to bond over a shared identity and experience. In many ways, getting a tattoo was a way to erase any previous distinctions, like social class, and to focus on the shared goal of plundering and surviving together. Pirates often tattooed each other, marking their loyalty to one another, and to the code that bound them together. This also extended to tattoos that could indicate loyalty to a specific captain or a pirate crew. Tattoos became a way to express allegiance. Captain's tattoos were often passed down to new crew members, marking their induction into the captain's inner circle. A tattoo could be seen as an unspoken promise that you would fight and die for the crew that had become your family. So when you think about it, pirate tattoos weren't just about personal identity or good luck. They were about group cohesion. They were the ultimate bonding experience for pirates, an indelible mark of belonging that reminded every pirate of their shared code and purpose. Historians still argue whether these tattoos played as much of a role in uniting the crew as we think. Some say they were just personal expressions, while others claim that the act of getting tattooed together helped cement the solidarity among pirates. Regardless, there's no denying that tattoos were an integral part of pirate life, and they represented more than just a mark of rebellion. They were a visible symbol of loyalty, experience, and a life lived on the edge. As we move further into the world of pirate tattoos, let's explore one of the most fascinating aspects of these inked symbols, the belief that tattoos could bring good luck. We've already touched on the idea that pirates were deeply superstitious, but their tattoos weren't just about identifying themselves or marking their survival. They were also thought to act as talismans, protecting pirates from the dangers of the sea and offering them a bit of fortune in their perilous lives. Pirates, as you can imagine, didn't exactly live the safest of lives. Constantly at war with other pirates, battling storms, and facing diseases like scurvy, their world was fraught with danger. In this hostile environment, it's no surprise that pirates turned to superstitions to help guide them through the chaos. Tattoos, then, were more than just decoration. They were personal shields, believed to protect the wearer from harm. For example, one of the most common lucky tattoos among pirates was the image of the lucky swallow. Swallows were seen as symbols of good fortune and safe return, as they were migratory birds known for traveling long distances to return home. Pirates who spent months or even years at sea often felt disconnected from their homes. So a swallow tattoo became a way to remind them that one day they would make it back to land. This tattoo was more than just a hopeful symbol. It was a reminder that survival was possible even after a long and dangerous journey across the unpredictable ocean. Some pirates also believed that tattoos could protect them from death itself. The idea was that if a pirate had certain symbols on his body, like a cross, an anchor, or a heart, then death wouldn't be able to claim them. This belief wasn't purely superstitious. For many pirates, tattoos served as a psychological boost, providing the comfort of knowing they had done everything they could to ensure their safety. Historians still argue whether pirates genuinely believed in the magical properties of their tattoos, or whether they were more psychological in nature. Some scholars suggest that the tattoos were simply comforting rituals, allowing pirates to convince themselves they were protected from the dangers of the sea. Others argue that pirates genuinely believed in the supernatural power of tattoos, using them to safeguard their lives against the dangers of the ocean and the enemies they encountered. Either way, the fact remains that tattoos played a central role in pirates' lives, providing them with a sense of security, purpose, and luck. And of course, some pirates went even further. The belief in lucky tattoos wasn't restricted to just the traditional symbols we've discussed. Pirates would also get tattoos of animals, objects, and words that they believed would bring them good fortune. For example, a number of pirates were known to have tattoos of a pig or a rooster on their feet. The reasoning behind this is that these animals, when placed on the feet, would ensure the pirate would never drown. After all, pigs and roosters were believed to be good swimmers, so by tattooing them on their feet, pirates were ensuring that they too would always stay afloat. It's an odd practice, but it speaks to the resourcefulness and creativity that pirates often displayed in their attempts to ward off the perils of the sea. Tattoos also became part of a pirate's personal armor. Just as a warrior might wear a helmet or shield, a pirate's tattoos became an extension of their protective gear. The tattoos were often seen as a force field of sorts, a way to ensure that they would make it through the many challenges of their dangerous lifestyle. Historians still debate whether these superstitions had any real impact on pirate behavior. Did the belief in these tattoos actually affect how pirates acted or how they approached danger? Some scholars argue that pirates were simply looking for any way to calm their nerves in the face of such overwhelming odds.
Others believe that these tattoos gave pirates a greater sense of control in a world where they had very little. Whether or not the tattoos worked in a magical sense, they undoubtedly had a profound effect on the pirates who wore them. Ultimately, what these tattoos symbolized was a pirate's belief in themselves and their ability to survive. They weren't just about luck. They were about resilience, faith, and hope, even in the darkest of times.
Let's now turn to the fascinating world of female pirates and their tattoos. While pirate lore is often dominated by the image of the swashbuckling male pirate, history also offers us glimpses of fearless women who sailed the seas, plundering and living life on their own terms. These women were as tough and tattooed as their male counterparts, and their tattoos often told stories of defiance, strength, and the desire to challenge the norms of their societies. The female pirate, though less common than her male counterpart, played a vital role in the golden age of piracy. Names like Anne Bonny and Mary Read stand out, both of whom became notorious for their daring acts at sea. And just like the men, these women also turned to tattoos as a way of marking their identity, claiming a space for themselves in a world that largely excluded them from such rebellious masculine activities. Anne Bonny, for instance, was known to have worn men's clothing and carried herself with the same ferocity as her male counterparts. While there is no definitive evidence that she had tattoos, it's widely believed that pirates like Anne, who broke from the traditional gender roles of their time, would have seen tattoos as a way to cement their place in the world of pirates. For women who chose this life, tattoos were a powerful statement of independence. But let's take a step back. Why would a woman, in particular, seek out tattoos? It's important to remember that piracy was not a genteel, romanticized pursuit. Pirates didn't live in comfortable homes with a hot bath and a cozy fire. They lived in rough conditions, constantly at risk of death. For women like Bonny and Reed, tattoos weren't just about looking tough, they were about survival. These women were fighting not just enemies on the high seas, but the constraints of a patriarchal society that expected them to behave in certain ways. Historians still debate whether female pirates were truly as common as some accounts suggest. Were women like Anne Bonny the exception? Or was there a larger, untold history of female pirates who were lost to time? Some argue that women's involvement in piracy has been downplayed, while others suggest that female pirates were indeed rare, but still an important part of pirate lore. Whatever the case, the tattoos these women wore, whether real or imagined, were a symbol of their defiance against societal norms and the harsh realities of piracy. For women like Anne Bonny and Mary Read, tattoos were also a way to mark their resilience. A tattoo could represent a woman's journey, her battles, and her victories. In a way, tattoos became an outward expression of an inner strength, a way to say, I belong here just as much as anyone else. These tattoos weren't just a fashion statement. They were a symbol of survival, independence, and rebellion. Interestingly, some pirate tattoos were less about individual defiance and more about solidarity with other pirates. Female pirates, like their male counterparts, often got tattoos to signify their membership in the pirate crew. Some were even known to share tattoos with other members of their crew, a way to symbolize their loyalty and allegiance. For female pirates, this shared experience of getting a tattoo that marked them as part of a greater group was a significant form of camaraderie. Tattooing among female pirates was not just about rebellion or personal expression, it was about survival, sisterhood, and creating an identity that transcended the constraints of the world around them. And while we may never know the full extent of female pirate tattooing, what we do know is that these women were just as immersed in the symbolism of tattoos as their male counterparts. They too used tattoos to mark their place in the world of piracy, creating a legacy that has been remembered for centuries.
Historians still argue whether female pirates were as common as the male ones, but it's undeniable that their tattoos, whether real or imagined, played an essential role in shaping their legacy. Tattoos for these women were a way to claim their place in a brutal world and say, I am here, and I am part of this story.
As we continue exploring the intriguing world of pirate tattoos, let's take a closer look at how tattoos were viewed in the context of pirate trials. Pirates, by nature, were outlaws who lived outside the rules of traditional society, but when they were captured, often in fierce naval battles or after being betrayed by a fellow pirate, tattoos played an unexpectedly significant role in their trials and executions. You might think the pirates, with their rebellious and carefree lifestyle, wouldn't care much about what their tattoos symbolized in a court of law. But in fact, these tattoos often became key pieces of evidence during pirate trials. Pirates were not only tried for their crimes, they were also tried for their very identities, and their tattoos were a way to confirm or deny their status as pirates. The tattoos worn by pirates weren't just personal choices. They were often used to prove a pirate's allegiance to a particular crew or captain. For example, if a pirate was captured and brought to trial, the court would often look for distinctive tattoos to help determine if the individual was indeed a pirate. Tattoos like the anchor, the skull and crossbones, or the traditional sailor's cross could all serve as a clear marker of a pirate's affiliation. Historians still debate whether tattooing was officially recognized in pirate trials or whether it was more of an informal method of identification. Some scholars argue that tattoos were only used as circumstantial evidence, proof that a person was a pirate based on their appearance. Others claim that tattoos were crucial in proving a pirate's guilt or innocence. In some cases, pirates may have had tattoos on their bodies that marked them as captain's men, and this could be used to convict them or to reveal their rank within the pirate crew. One famous example of tattoos being used as evidence during a pirate trial is that of the infamous pirate William Kidd, also known as Captain Kidd. Kidd was a well-known privateer who eventually turned pirate and was arrested and tried for his crimes. While his tattoos didn't directly play a role in his conviction, the very nature of his pirate identity, his tattoos, his reputation, and his actions were all used against him during the trial. Tattoos like those he might have worn, perhaps symbols of loyalty to his crew or to his pirate cause, were seen as marks of his rebellion. And it wasn't just about identification. Pirates' tattoos also became symbols of their fate. For many pirates, a tattoo was a permanent mark that indicated they were ready to face whatever came their way, even death. In fact, some pirates believed that getting tattoos before a battle or trial was a way to seal their fate and show their defiance against the law. Pirates didn't just get tattoos to show off. They got them as a way to remind themselves of their fight against authority. They were living on the edge, and their tattoos were a permanent reminder of that. But even as tattoos became part of pirate trials, they also represented a more personal, symbolic act. Tattoos were reminders of the pirate's journey, of where they had been, what they had seen, and the trials they had faced along the way. Pirates often wore their tattoos proudly, not as an attempt to escape the law, but as a badge of honor, a mark of their identity. Tattoos were their stories, told in ink, etched into their skin for the world to see. So, when we look back at the pirate trials, it's clear that tattoos weren't just decorative. They were an integral part of pirate culture, used to mark pirates for identification, as evidence of their allegiance, and sometimes as a symbol of their fate. Pirates didn't just carry tattoos as a part of their rebellious lifestyle. They carried them as permanent symbols of who they were, where they had been, and what they stood for. Historians still argue whether tattoos were a significant part of pirate trials or if they were simply a symbol of rebellion. Either way, one thing is certain. Pirate tattoos were as much a part of the trial process as they were of the pirate's personal story, and they played a crucial role in defining who these men and women were in the eyes of the law.
Now that we've explored how pirate tattoos were integral to the pirate's identity, let's examine their connection to death, and more specifically, the afterlife. Pirates were notorious for living fast, reckless lives, but their tattoos weren't just about survival in the present. They were also about what came next. Pirates, like many sailors of their time, were deeply concerned with death, particularly death at sea, where there was no guarantee of a proper burial or safe passage to the afterlife.
Given that pirates lived dangerous, tumultuous lives, it's no surprise that many of them turned to tattoos as a way to navigate the afterlife. Tattoos were believed to serve as protection from the dangers of death, particularly when it came to dying in battle or in the open sea. One common belief was that tattoos could protect the soul from being lost, ensuring that the pirate's spirit would find its way to the afterlife, rather than being left adrift in the endless ocean. One tattoo that was particularly associated with death in the afterlife was the image of a cross. Many sailors, including pirates, would tattoo crosses on their bodies, usually on the chest or arms, as a way of invoking the protection of God. In the perilous world of piracy, where death was an ever-present threat, these tattoos were seen as a way to ensure safe passage to the afterlife. The cross wasn't just a religious symbol, it was a sign of hope and security, a way to stave off the terror of death and to believe that their soul would find peace once their journey was over. Similarly, pirates also believed that tattoos could keep their bodies from being desecrated after death. The fear of being buried at sea without the proper rites or being left to float in the water without a burial was a deep concern for many pirates. To prevent this, some pirates would tattoo symbols on their bodies that were thought to protect them from such dishonor. One particularly common tattoo was a heart, which represented the idea of being remembered in the afterlife and not forgotten by those they left behind. The heart was symbolic of both the soul and love, a connection to those the pirate loved and a reminder that they would be cherished even after death. Pirates also tattooed images of animals like swallows or dolphins to symbolize their belief in safe passage to the afterlife. The swallow, which we've seen before as a symbol of return, also had a more mystical connection to the afterlife. It was believed that swallows guided the souls of the dead to the next world. The dolphin, often seen as a protector of sailors in myth, was also a popular tattoo for pirates. It was thought that the dolphin would protect the soul of the pirate during the dangerous voyage to the afterlife, ensuring they reached their final destination without being lost to the sea. Historians still debate the extent to which these superstitions played a role in pirates' tattoos. Were they genuinely concerned with the afterlife, or were these tattoos simply a way to calm their nerves in a dangerous and unpredictable world? Some scholars argue that these tattoos were more about reinforcing the pirates' own sense of identity and control over their fate. Others believe that these tattoos were deeply rooted in the belief that death was always lurking just around the corner, and the tattoos offered both protection and comfort in the face of such a constant threat. Regardless of the exact beliefs surrounding pirate tattoos in the afterlife, it's clear that these tattoos held significant meaning for the pirates who wore them. Tattoos were not just a mark of survival, they were a way to navigate death, to ensure that the pirate's soul would be protected and that their journey would have meaning even after the end. Pirate tattoos were part of a larger narrative of survival, fate, and the ever-present awareness of death. They served as both a personal symbol of resilience and a way to safeguard against the unknown. Pirates didn't just wear tattoos for decoration, they wore them for protection, for faith, and for a sense of peace in a world that offered very little of either.
The golden age of piracy was not only a time of adventurous deeds and dangerous quests, it was also a period where pirate tattoos became increasingly symbolic and culturally significant. Pirates who roamed the seas during this time were not only feared for their ruthless raids on merchant ships, they were also known for their distinctive tattoos, which served as a visual language. The golden age of piracy, roughly spanning the late 1600s to the early 1700s, is when pirate tattoos truly began to be associated with the broader pirate identity beyond simple decoration or superstition. During this era, pirates were often romanticized as rebels against the strict norms of European society. The tattooed pirate became a symbol of rebellion, someone who had rejected the rules and embraced a life of freedom on the high seas. Tattoos marked pirates as outsiders, but they also bound them together as part of a shared identity. The idea of having tattoos became as much a symbol of belonging to the pirate community as it did a mark of defiance against the oppressive structures they sought to escape. Many pirates during the Golden Age would have seen tattoos as an important part of their cultural identity. Tattoos were often chosen based on their personal experiences, but they also reflected the broader pirate ethos. The skull and crossbones, the anchor, the heart, and the swallow. These designs were not just random, they were symbols that pirates shared, symbols that spoke of the dangers and the camaraderie of life on the ocean. The designs themselves were often simple, but the meaning behind them was anything but. For instance, a pirate who wore a skull and crossbones wasn't just marking themselves with a symbol of death, they were declaring their fearless attitude toward it. They were telling the world, I live by my own rules, and I'll meet my end when I'm ready. Similarly, the anchor tattoo, which many pirates wore, wasn't just about the sea. It was about strength and endurance in the face of adversity. It was a reminder that despite the chaos of piracy, there was still something anchoring the pirate to the world, even if that anchor was the sea itself. The golden age of piracy was also when pirates became more organized, and as pirate ships began to form more structured crews, tattoos were used as a way to reflect the hierarchy aboard the ship. Just as pirate tattoos served as individual statements, they also acted as markers of status and role within the crew. For example, a pirate captain might wear a tattoo that signified their leadership or their close ties to other powerful pirates, while a lower-ranking member of the crew might sport a simpler, more modest design. Interestingly, this period also saw the rise of the pirate code, a set of rules that governed the conduct of pirate crews. While the pirate code itself was often more about the division of loot and the maintenance of order within the crew, tattoos in some ways became a visual representation of that code. A pirate's tattoos could signal their adherence to the rules of their crew or signify their rank within the pirate hierarchy.
As we transition from the golden age of piracy, let's now take a moment to reflect on the decline of pirate tattoos. While pirates had once been among the most tattooed individuals in the world, the gradual disappearance of piracy as a way of life led to the fading of these distinctive marks. As piracy became less prevalent in the 18th century due to increased naval patrols and stronger enforcement of maritime laws, the widespread practice of tattooing among pirates dwindled. But even as the world moved on, the tattoos worn by pirates would live on in memory and continue to shape the cultural landscape. As piracy waned, so did the tradition of pirate tattooing. The decline of piracy in the 1700s came about due to several factors: the rise of powerful navies, the enforcement of colonial laws, and changes in trade routes that made pirating less lucrative. With the fall of piracy, the pirate crews that had once roamed the seas broke apart, and the tattoo pirates who had once been symbols of rebellion became relics of a bygone era. Without the pirate crews to sustain them, tattoos slowly lost their relevance. The once popular symbols, like the anchor, the skull, and the swallow, were no longer common sights among sailors, and as a result, the association between tattoos and piracy began to fade. Pirates were no longer the rogues of the seas. They became the subjects of legends and tall tales, their tattoos just a fading part of the myth. Historians still argue whether pirates had a truly lasting impact on the tattoo culture. Some believe that piracy's decline simply meant the end of an era, and that tattoos eventually found new homes with different subcultures, like sailors, soldiers, and later the general public. Others suggest that pirate tattoos represented a unique form of resistance, and as piracy ended, that form of resistance was replaced by other kinds of social defiance. Whatever the case, the role of pirates in shaping tattoo culture had a lasting effect, even if the tattoos themselves were no longer as common. Interestingly, as piracy faded, the tattoo practice among sailors didn't. Many sailors continued to get tattoos throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, albeit for different reasons than their pirate predecessors. Tattooing, though still a badge of rebellion, became more of a sailor's tradition than a pirate's necessity. The anchor tattoo, for example, was still a popular symbol among sailors, but its meaning shifted from being a mark of piracy to a more general symbol of life at sea. The tattoo became a way to mark one's identity as a sailor, an enduring tradition even as the days of pirate crews and their codes came to an end.
But while pirate tattoos began to disappear in the wake of the end of piracy, they never entirely vanished from popular consciousness. Even after piracy became a thing of the past, the images of skulls, anchors, and swallows remained entrenched in the public imagination. Pirates had left their mark, not just in ink, but in culture, and their tattoos continued to echo through the ages. Historians still argue about the cultural shift that took place after the golden age of piracy. Was the end of piracy the end of the tattooed pirate culture, or did it simply evolve into something else? It's clear that pirate tattoos, even as piracy itself became a part of history, remained influential. Their imagery would later inspire various subcultures, particularly those associated with rebellion, freedom, and the rejection of societal norms. The decline of piracy and pirate tattoos marked the end of an era, but in many ways it also marked the beginning of a new cultural movement. Pirate tattoos lived on in different forms, and the spirit of the pirate, marked by those bold tattoos, continued to inspire generations long after the last pirate ships had sailed.
But just because piracy had faded into history, it didn't mean that pirate tattoos were entirely forgotten. In fact, in modern times, these once feared marks have seen a resurgence in popularity. The iconic images of pirates, skulls, crossbones, anchors, and swallows have become part of pop culture. And with that revival came a rebirth of interest in the tattoos that once defined pirate identity. Pirate tattoos were no longer just a symbol of rebellion on the high seas. They had evolved into something that represented freedom, adventure, and a certain wild spirit that transcended time. The tattoo revival began in the 20th century, when tattooing started to move from the fringes of society into the mainstream. As tattoo culture grew in popularity, especially among certain subcultures like bikers and punk rockers, the pirate aesthetic was reclaimed and reimagined. The skull and crossbones, for example, became a universal symbol of defiance, no longer associated solely with the lawlessness of pirates, but with a more general sense of rejecting authority and embracing freedom. Pirate tattoos became a way for modern individuals to tap into the adventurous, rebellious spirit that pirates once represented. It wasn't about pillaging ships or sailing into battle with cutlasses drawn. It was about embracing the pirate ethos, the idea that you could chart your own course, live life on your own terms, and carve out your own identity. These tattoos were no longer just for sailors or pirates. They were for anyone who felt a sense of defiance and adventure. The pirate tattoo revival also coincided with the rise of the pirate archetype in popular culture. Movies like Pirates of the Caribbean reignited public interest in pirates, and with that came a renewed fascination with the tattoos that adorned their bodies. Jack Sparrow's swashbuckling charm and bold tattoos were a modern reflection of the pirate aesthetic, and soon pirate-themed tattoos were being worn by people who had never set foot on a ship, much less lived a life of piracy. Historians still debate the reasons for the resurgence of pirate tattoos in the modern era. Some argue that it's simply a matter of nostalgia, a desire to embrace the golden age of piracy and the romanticized notions of freedom and rebellion that come with it. Others suggest that tattoos are part of a broader cultural shift towards self-expression and individualism. Whatever the reason, pirate tattoos have firmly re-established their place in modern tattoo culture. What's particularly fascinating is how the meaning behind pirate tattoos has evolved. While they once served as marks of identity, survival, and protection, today they often carry more personal, symbolic meanings. For some, a pirate tattoo might be a reminder of their own rebellious spirit, a statement that they refuse to conform to the expectations of society. For others, it might represent a longing for adventure or a connection to the freedom of the sea, an escape from the mundanity of daily life. The skull and crossbones, once a symbol of death, is now a symbol of embracing life to the fullest with all its risks and rewards. Pirates, in a sense, have become an enduring symbol of freedom, and their tattoos, once worn as a mark of survival in a hostile world, are now worn as a badge of pride for anyone who feels they're living on the edge. Whether they're inked with an anchor, a swallow, or a skull, pirate tattoos have transcended their original meanings, becoming a symbol of personal defiance, individuality, and the desire to break free from the constraints of the ordinary world. Tattoo culture, inspired by pirates, has come full circle, from a mark of survival and rebellion to a statement of self-expression. Pirates may have sailed off into the pages of history, but their tattoos live on, continuing to inspire and empower people around the world. The legacy of pirate tattoos, from their beginnings in the brutal world of piracy to their current status as symbols of freedom and rebellion, is a testament to the enduring power of these inked marks.
Now that we've traced the fascinating history of pirate tattoos and their resurgence in modern times, let's explore how these tattoos have come to be so deeply ingrained in popular culture. Pirate tattoos are no longer just confined to the high seas or the pages of history books. They have made their way into mainstream society, with tattoos of skulls, anchors, and swallows becoming iconic symbols that anyone can wear. What was once a mark of rebellion and danger has, over time, been transformed into a symbol of adventure, freedom, and perhaps unexpectedly, fashion. The connection between pirates and tattoos is stronger than ever in popular media. The cultural impact of movies like Pirates of the Caribbean has been instrumental in reviving the pirate tattoo aesthetic. Captain Jack Sparrow, with his iconic tattoos, brought pirate culture back into the mainstream, making pirate tattoos a visual shorthand for a free-spirited, adventurous lifestyle. Whether it was the swashbuckling image of a skull or the rebellious image of a crossbones, pirate tattoos became a representation of not just the pirate persona, but also of the desire for freedom and individuality. What's interesting is how these tattoos, once symbols of defiance and danger, have been reinterpreted in today's world. Today, you're just as likely to see someone sporting a skull and crossbones tattoo in a corporate setting as you are in a pirate-themed bar. In fact, pirates have almost become a part of the larger rebellious countercultural aesthetic. Tattoos once associated with outlaws have been embraced by a wider variety of people, many of whom have no connection to piracy at all. This shift in meaning reflects a larger cultural trend, tattooing as a form of self-expression. While the pirates of the past used tattoos as a way to mark their identity and protect themselves, today's tattoo enthusiasts use ink as a way to communicate who they are and what they stand for. Pirate tattoos in particular carry with them an air of mystery and adventure, even if the person wearing them has never set foot on a pirate ship. The skull, the anchor, the swallow, they all evoke a sense of freedom, adventure, and a refusal to be tied down by the conventions of society. But it's not just in tattoos where we see the influence of pirate culture. Pirates have long been romanticized in books, movies, and television, and this has only strengthened the association between pirates and rebellion. From pirate-themed amusement parks to pirate festivals, we've created an entire subculture around the idea of piracy, complete with its own visual language. Tattoos, as the most permanent of these symbols, have become central to that identity. Pirate tattoos have even influenced the world of fashion. The edgy, rebellious vibe that pirates represent has seeped into the world of clothing and accessories, from skull-adorned jewelry to the popularization of pirate-themed clothing. This adoption of pirate aesthetics in everyday life only further cements the idea that pirate tattoos are no longer just relics of the past. They are part of a broader, ongoing cultural phenomenon, one that celebrates freedom, individuality, and rebellion. But even as pirates have become icons of freedom in the popular imagination, there's still something deeply powerful about their tattoos. Pirate tattoos are symbols of defiance, defiance against authority, against the constraints of society, and against the dangers of the sea. They remind us of the power of identity, the importance of survival, and the desire to carve out our own path in life, just as the pirates did centuries ago. Historians still argue whether the modern fascination with pirate tattoos is more of a cultural trend or a deeper reflection of our desire for freedom and rebellion. Some see it as a nostalgic longing for the past, a romanticization of a life lived on the edge. Others suggest that pirate tattoos represent something more profound, a yearning for self-expression and a rejection of conformity. Whatever the interpretation, one thing is clear. Pirate tattoos have become a lasting symbol of adventure, defiance, and the pursuit of individuality. As we draw our journey through the fascinating history of pirate tattoos to a close, let's take a moment to reflect on the lasting legacy of these remarkable symbols. Pirates may no longer rule the seas, but their tattoos continue to inspire, intrigue, and symbolize something much larger than just rebellion. Over the centuries, pirate tattoos have evolved from being marks of survival and mysticism to becoming icons of freedom, adventure, and self-expression that transcend the world of piracy itself. What is truly remarkable is how the tattoos that once marked pirates as outlaws and outcasts have now been embraced by mainstream culture. From the skull and crossbones to the swallow, from the anchor to the heart, these symbols have become synonymous with the idea of living life on your own terms, with a sense of courage, defiance, and personal identity. Today, pirate tattoos are no longer just for sailors or rebels. They are worn by people from all walks of life, each person infusing their own meaning into the design. Pirate tattoos have also become an enduring part of tattoo culture itself. While the world of piracy has faded into history, the aesthetic and symbolism of pirate tattoos live on. Whether it's the adventurous spirit of the pirate, the rebellious stance against societal constraints, or the romanticized notion of freedom on the open sea, these tattoos continue to represent the desire to live authentically, unapologetically, and fearlessly. In this way, the tattoos of pirates, once marks of a dangerous profession, have transformed into symbols of empowerment and individuality. Even in the world of modern pop culture, pirate tattoos remain ever relevant. Movies, TV shows, books, and even video games have kept the image of the pirate alive, and with it, the imagery of their tattoos. Pirates, once the scourge of the seas, have become cultural icons, and their tattoos have become part of the visual language that tells the story of their legendary lives. The enduring popularity of pirate tattoos speaks to the power of symbols, how simple images can capture profound concepts like freedom, defiance, and survival. In a sense, pirate tattoos have come full circle. Once created to mark the pirate's place in the world, to show their status or protect them from harm, these tattoos now serve as personal emblems for anyone who identifies with the spirit of piracy, whether they're a sailor, a rebel, an adventurer, or just someone who sees the world through a lens of defiance and independence. Today, pirate tattoos continue to evoke a sense of mystery and intrigue, reminding us of the rich history of piracy and the bold individuals who lived life outside the norm. They've moved beyond their original purpose, evolving into symbols of resilience, courage, and a desire to forge one's own path. Whether you're a pirate of old or simply someone looking to express your own adventurous spirit, these tattoos carry with them a legacy that has endured for centuries. As we wrap up tonight's journey through the world of pirate tattoos, take a moment to think about the boldness, the defiance, and the history behind the tattoos that have outlasted generations of sailors and adventurers. Pirate tattoos may no longer be marks of survival on the high seas, but they are forever a symbol of independence, strength, and the desire to live life on your own terms. And as long as there are those who dare to be different, the legacy of pirate tattoos will continue to sail on.